Hi and welcome to this week's Life Lessons video. It's great to be back with you all. This week we're talking all about emotions and feelings. Are you struggling with uncomfortable or painful emotional feelings in terms of how you manage them or resolve them, or perhaps you just want them to stop? Maybe you've tried a therapy that eased your painful emotional feelings for a short while, but then they just came back. Well, in this video, we're going to be explaining the real purpose of your emotional feelings and how they can help you, even the uncomfortable and painful ones. And most importantly, we're going to be sharing what we believe are the essential do's and don'ts of managing your emotional feelings and how you can heal and resolve emotional pain for good. Welcome to our Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. So, David, the question we've had in on emotions is, I'm an emotional wreck. My painful and anxious feelings are really overpowering me. I just want to shut them off and desensitize myself so I don't feel bad anymore. My therapist has told me that I need to feel it to heal it by focusing even more on my emotions and how they affect me and my body so I get comfortable with them and more resilient. But this hasn't worked and I still feel rubbish. Can you help?
Yes.
Good. Well, let's begin, David, with what are in our Wu Wei Wisdom model, what's the purpose of emotional feelings? Why do we have them?
So emotional feelings, I believe, are one of your greatest assets, particularly if you're a spiritual person and a sensitive person. I believe that your emotions can tell you whether you're on your Wu Wei, in your flow, living your life authentically, living your life to a purpose, living your life on message or not. Can I share with you? I think I've done it once before, but let me share with you a little story. When I was living in China at the Wudong Mountains and working with one of my masters who wanted to learn a little bit of English, and my Chinese was almost non-existent, and we used to have this really interesting conversation. You know, when somebody doesn't talk and you start to shout at each other. Yes, this is how we were. And he used to come to me with words that he'd heard. And he came to me one day and he used to call me, David Lee, emotion. It means, what's emotion? So I'm like, all right, I've got to try and explain emotions now in my best Chinese, you know. So I was going, crying, angry, sad, upset, trying to explain it and using the best Chinese that I could. And he looked quizzically and he put his head to one side and he went, Shen disturbance. And I went to correct him. And I can tell you that changed my life. Just those two words. Remember what we mean by Shen, your spirit, your essence, that real thing that what you are.
It's like your higher self or that energy within you.
There's no words to describe this awesomeness that I keep talking about, this divine nature of who you are. That's your Shen. Your Shen is disturbed. So when you have that, what we call red light emotions, anger, frustration, stress, depression, anxiety, it's just telling you your Shen is being disturbed. You are not living to your true spirit. That's why I like to call it a red light. It's like the fire alarm is going, ringing, saying, stop it. Look at what you're thinking. Look at what you're believing. And that's why I believe, if correctly approached and addressed and talked about, your emotions become your greatest asset. You can start to use them to help you live your life on purpose, in your flow, in your Wu Wei, being authentic, being true to yourself, living to your highest purpose. And that's what emotions can do when they're used correctly.
So what you're saying in the Wu Wei Wisdom model based on the Taoist teachings is that emotions are a natural thing. They're
Absolutely.
a natural signpost as to what's going on within us at a deeper level.
Absolutely.
Whether our Shen, our higher self, our spiritual self is disturbed, i.e. is out of balance, or whether it's imbalanced.
Absolutely.
And when we're in balance, we're living to our truth, our authenticity, our highest potential. So,
amen, Alex. Exactly.
So because a lot,
we should all be doing that.
Yeah.
We should all be living to that level.
Yeah.
And this is not a dream. This is not something that's an illusion. This is something you already are. You are that person. You were born that person. You don't have to go and search it. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can take it away from you. That's who you are. And this is when people tell me they doubt themselves, or they don't think they're good enough, and they start lying to themselves. They can't cope and they're unlovable. This is such nonsense, because you are an awesome, divine human being. You are so blessed. Listen to yourself and use the feelings in the correct way, and that will keep you on message.
So emotional feelings, they're not a sign that you're a weak person. Because a lot of people think that, it's like, I have really strong red light feelings, anxiety, depression, anger, hopelessness, whatever red light feelings they are. It means I'm a weak person. It means I'm rubbish. Other people aren't suffering, but I am. It's not a sign of weakness. It's just a sign that there's something going on at a deeper level that needs to be looked at.
That's all it's telling you, that you've got to do a little bit of work. And mainly, when I work with clients, the only thing that's missing is a little bit of emotional education. They've never had it as a child. That's when I'm sure we'll talk about the inner child. Nobody's ever sat down with them and showed them and guided them how to use and interpret their emotions. And this is what I would like you to consider. Don't respond to your emotions, interpret them, listen to them, and try and do the golden thread. I'm sure we'll demonstrate that as in a moment, and try and find out what is the root cause, what is the misunderstanding that you have to correct. And this is why we've called this series Life Lessons, because that's the life lesson. And if you don't learn the life lesson, you know what happens. It just comes around. Different people, different times, same lesson. And you keep on repeating that lesson until it's learned. So this is what you've got to just drop your shoulders now and think about it. It's not, well, I can avoid this lesson, then I'll never have to meet it again. You will meet it again. Next week, next month, next year, 10 years' time. Might be a different person, might be a different time, but it will be the same life lesson. Once you've learned the life lesson, it's gone away completely. It will never return because you've learned it. And so you will never encounter that again. This is such powerful stuff. This is life-changing stuff that you can do right now. As you listen to this, you can just drop your shoulders, and instead of trying to avoid the feelings, let's start interpreting. Let's start listening to the message that's underlining them.
And I love that, the idea of them being a signpost. The surface level emotional feelings are like a spiritual signpost that there's an imbalance going on deep down. So essentially the golden thread process, which we've discussed in many of our other videos, is we start with the top level feelings, acknowledging them, then ask yourself, well, what am I thinking in this moment that's causing these emotional feelings? And then what are the beliefs below the thoughts, the self-talk, that are creating or generating or driving the thoughts which are creating the emotions? And then it's a kind of a step-by-step approach.
Well, it's so true, Alex, because as you say, a lot of people will kind of get confused and say that I'm weak, or I'm not enough, or I'm not strong enough. When actually, when you're experiencing red light feelings, what it means to me is you are a very spiritual person. You are a very sensitive person, but that's not a weakness. That's your superpower. That's your greatest strength. That's what you should use to live your life authentically and truthfully on your message.
Because, David, that's so true, because I know that isn't it better to get a strong immediate red light feeling when something's not right, either with an external situation, which we'll talk about, or something going on internally within you in terms of your self-talk, your thoughts, and your core beliefs, isn't it better to get a really, it's like having the fire alarm analogy we use, having the loudest, most sensitive fire alarm possible to give you an advance warning that something is not right.
Yep.
So I think in that regard, it's better to be a highly sensitive person because you're so much more. As long as you understand the purpose and the role of the emotions, my goodness, it's like having like a supercharged system which tells you, hello, something's got to be looked at here. Much better that than 1 week, 2 week, a year, 10 years down the line where you've been living with an imbalance but haven't corrected it because you've just had kind of meh feelings but not really strong red light feelings.
Well, again, you see, this is why it is so powerful and life-changing, because if you're sensitive, if you're intuitive, if you're spiritual, that means that when you encounter a difficult situation, an event or a person, you can deal with it spiritually, in your intuition, and sensitively. And you can deal with it in the Wu way, in authenticity. You can deal with the event using those qualities, those characteristics that you already have. You see, you don't have to go and learn those. Nobody can give them to you. You already have them. And all we're trying to say is, this is your best asset. This is your greatest strength. Why don't you use them?
Yeah.
It's like you have a Ferrari and you're driving the Ferrari around in first gear, and I'm going, well, use the other gears, drive your Ferrari. You are a Ferrari. What more can I say? Use your Ferrari. You should be driving around properly and using everything that you've got to the best of your unique ability. No one is better than anyone else. You're not perfect. That doesn't mean to say you get everything right. All the stuff we've talked about in other videos. But you will be authentic, and you will be living in your flow, and you will be following your true course, your life lessons, and you will be on your authentic journey. And wherever that leads, my goodness, that's a blessing. Who knows what you can achieve? Do you know what you can really achieve if you let go of all of these shackles of rubbish self-doubt and self-criticism and self-talk negatively? Imagine if you let go. Just imagine now, as you're listening to us, could you imagine just dropping all of that negativity? How would you live your life? How would you deal with events? How would you finish this video and stand up with being completely free of all those shackles? And you know, the only person that can achieve that is you. You can do that right now. No one else is stopping you, only you. And that to me is the message of Wu Wei. Live your life authentically and truthfully.
So David, if I want to take self-responsibility, I want to live my life truthfully and authentically, I want to use my emotions as these spiritual signposts, or these signposts of, is there something I need to do here or respond to here? How do we know the difference between a red light feeling, an uncomfortable or painful feeling that is created by an internal imbalance in our thinking or our beliefs that's affecting our Shen, and a red light feeling, painful feeling that's created by something going on externally, and it's like authentic. So for example, if a loved one dies, or a relationship comes to an end, and and you're very unhappy or upset, heartbroken at your partner leaving you, or even say a situation whereby you get a red light feeling of anxiety, panic, stress, because a situation is just not right, and it's almost like a warning to you've got to do something about this situation or this person because something's not right here. How can we decipher the difference between an internal imbalance feeling that we need to do some deeper work on ourselves, and a red light feeling which is authentic? It's actually telling us something.
Okay, so there's two questions there.
Okay.
Great questions. So first of all, let me emphasize, red light feelings are not bad or evil or to be avoided
Or your enemy.
or your enemy or anything. They are warning signs. So if you're driving your car and the red light comes on the dashboard, it's actually a good thing, isn't it? It's telling you to go and do some attention, go into a garage and check it out. Now, that might be checked out that just you need to top up the water. It's nothing. Or it might be a serious problem. So that's the thing. Red lights are not in themselves a problem. They are a warning telling you. Then Alex's question is, well, how do we know what's serious and what's not? And that's when we talk about the carousel of despair. Now, if these red lights are constant, coming back, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, it means you haven't resolved something. And if in the example, the role play that Alex says, if you've lost someone you've loved, if a relationship comes to an end, if you've been made redundant, it's totally normal to have a red light. But then that red light is more like an inspiration. So let's talk about the worst one you talk about death.
Yeah.
So someone you loved, a parent, a partner, a friend dies. Well, it's totally normal to be upset, to cry, to grieve, to shut down for a day, to go and sit in a darkened room, to reflect, to think about your relationship.
And that's different. That grieving process is different for everyone. There's no set, so that could be a day or a week or even a few weeks or more than that. It's a personal thing, isn't it?
But I would ask you, that also fits into the Wu Wei model. So here's how it fits into using the worst case scenario, the grieving process. Then I would ask you, when you're sitting quietly, ask yourself, what would that person that I've just lost, what would that person want for me? Here's the life lesson. Would they have wanted me now to ruin the rest of my life? Would they have wanted me to walk around sad, depressed, anxious? Would they want me to shut down my world and almost emotionally die with them? No, of course they wouldn't. What would they want? If it's your parent, they would want you to prosper. They would want you to grow. They would want you to honor their spirit. And there's the life lesson. See, so although it's a similar process, you come down to the life lesson. So in that example for me, when I'm working with people who are grieving and on the carousel and can't let go, sometimes for decades, that's what I ask them. What do you think that person that you really loved and you had a very close relationship, whether it was your wife, your husband, your mother, your father, what would they have wanted for you? After they leave, what would they have wanted for you? And why don't you honor their spirit? Why don't you listen to what they would want for you and live your life so you are honoring the relationship that you had, that honoring them as a parent, honoring them as a partner, that you flourish? Because if you love someone, you would want to say, I love you. I want to see you flourish. I want to see you happy. Whether I'm sitting here beside you or not, it doesn't stop me from loving you.
So, I mean, this is a very important topic, and I think we'll do a video on the topic of death and dying and grieving in the future. Because
I think it's important.
It's a very important topic. So what you're saying, David, is that the red light feelings of grieving and whatever they may be for you, and are normal and natural and appropriate. Appropriate a good word. However, if you still have the same intensity or the same amount of red light feelings months, years later,
and they're
and going round on the carousel, and there's been no movement, because we have to express the energy. We're talking about express the energy. Grieve is a natural thing, but if you're still experiencing months, years later, nothing's changed, the energy hasn't shifted, you're on the carousel. That's not appropriate. And then it's a case of looking and doing the deeper work.
You haven't learned the lesson, or you haven't identified.
You haven't done the deeper work within you. You're kind of stuck and blocked on the emotion. So the same principle applies to the end of a relationship with a loved one as well.
Being made redundant. So for instance, being made redundant, it's
any
shock.
sort of shock. It's appropriate to experience red light feelings.
Absolutely.
And the idea is you're bringing all the time, the energy moves out of balance. You experience the red light feelings. That's normal. That's appropriate to experience the red light feelings. And then it's about how you appropriately bring the emotions back into that wu-wei balance. So if it's grieving, if it's the end of a relationship, if it's the end of a career that you weren't expecting or a job you weren't expecting, any issue like that, it's natural to get that swinging to the extreme. And then it's about how you gently bring things appropriately in the time that's appropriate to you back into the balance. It's not about sitting in the extreme continuously.
And I would say that swinging pendulum that we talk about, and we've done many videos on it, welcome to life.
Yeah.
That's life.
Yeah.
You see, those are the challenges. It's no good saying, oh, yeah, but David, I don't want this. I don't want this to happen. I want this perfect life where everything works out and I'm in control and I know what's going to happen next week, next month, next year. I'm sorry, that's not reality. The thing that Alex has just described is swinging pendulum. And what we're trying to do in the wu-wei process is to bring that pendulum down. So instead of swinging violently or being stuck in one of the extremes, it's more like a gentle sway. This is living in your flow. Yeah. This is living in harmony.
Because life is not rigid and fixed,
Absolutely.
as you say. So you can't kind of fix yourself in a set emotional state and expect the outside world to be fixed in a set state. Therefore, your emotions are never going to be moving. It's about how quickly and authentically and appropriately you can adjust to so you're not going to the extremes all the time. It's more a case of your new habit, your new way of being is more just kind of hovering close to that middle point.
And so that middle point, wouldn't it be better to be sensitive? Then you can sensitively be more attuned to the little nuances.
Yeah, exactly. So what about, just briefly, in a situation where we get red light feelings, because something is not right with an external situation, whether it's a situation or a person we're dealing with. It's almost like they're there as a warning sign for we need to move away or deal with this.
We need to do it. We need to address the situation. Yeah. We need to address and to resolve the situation. And
not avoid.
That could be in many ways. That could be that you're moving away from it. That may be that you've got a life lesson to learn. It may be the way that you deal with people, with events, with situations. It may be how you deal with your sensitivity, and those are the life lessons, and that's what we've been doing these videos on. And you see, with all of these questions, and we're so grateful for these questions that you ask in the free Facebook community or on the YouTube videos. The question itself, I always smile when I listen to the question, because you can always tell within the first sentence. I think that one said something like,
I'm an emotional wreck.
I am an emotional wreck. You see, and it's this statement that people make, and it's almost like, this is it. I can't do anything about it. I'm just an emotional wreck.
That's just the state I find myself in.
That's it. It's like, I'm not taking any responsibility for my emotions. And then we're back to the basic teachings. These emotions come and they're used like shipwreck. I'm a wreck. These emotions are overpowering me. And I'm going, well, hang on. You have created the emotions. No, I haven't. They did. The way they did it, I got made redundant. It wasn't me. It was, no. I'm not talking about you were made redundant or somebody's left you. I'm talking about your emotions. The emotions come internally. They don't come externally. And that's the basic teaching. And then when you say words like that and you hear it on every question, we could do the video on the first sentence, because that's the misunderstanding. And then remember I talk about the fork? You've taken the wrong fork now. So if we continue down that road, we're just going down the wrong fork. It's like going north when we want to go south. And so you have to come back and say, stop now, let's come back. First of all, do you accept that you create the emotional feelings? This is the most important question. I'm going to repeat this on every video. Yeah. You are the creator of your emotions. You are not the victim. Now, I can almost see you all nodding your head saying, yeah, of course I believe that. Now, you might believe that as the mature adult, but ask yourself, sit quietly after this video, have a cup of tea, drop your shoulders, have a cup of coffee and say, does my inner child believe that? Yeah. Does my inner child believe that he or she creates every emotion that I experience. Once you've done that little bit of work, I tell you, that's life-changing. That to understand and to own, to take responsibility that you create the emotion.
Well, I think the inner child kind of sees the outside world creating other things, external things giving them the emotions. If it wasn't for that happening, or if it wasn't for that person, or if it wasn't for this situation, I'd be okay. That person, that situation needs to change, and then I'll be okay. They like to blame, and they also like to see themselves as the victim. But then, obviously, that's not taking self-responsibility.
But you're stuck then, you're on the carousel.
Well, you're on the carousel. So, I mean, I wanted to know that if this idea of being a victim, blaming other people, it's quite commonplace, and you have to say, as you've said, even if it's being made redundant, even if it's a real life shock or a distressing situation like someone you know dying, it's then acknowledging that I have to now authentically deal with this situation. Absolutely. Yeah.
This is an event, a stimulus, something that's happening in your life. You can't go and put the duvet over your head and hide away from it. You have to go and address it. I'm very sorry that you have to address it. I hope you don't have to address many of these situations. But we all do. Our story, we all have a story. Our life is not always perfect. People don't always die at the right time when we think it's the right time for them to go. We don't stay in the career we love. We don't always be in a perfect relationship. This is what spirituality to me is about, living in reality. That's what spirituality is about, is to stay starting from the starting point that you are already awesome. You are already a divine spiritual human being living in this world. And if you use those qualities, if you use those characteristics, if you use those skills that you already have, this is it. No one can give them to you because you already have them. And then all of the problems that we talk about, all of the life lessons, which will come to you in different forms, and then you can deal with them authentically and truthfully and honestly. Now, you may not always be correct, of course, but then you'll learn the lesson. And then the next time something like that comes, you can deal with it. I believe in you so much. I believe and I know that you can do this. You can do this. And stop doubting yourself. Stop doubting yourself. When you hear me say those and you say, oh, well, it's all right him saying that, or it might work for other people, I'm talking to you. It works for you. And when you hear that little voice in the back of your head, that's your little child. That's your part of your mind that we've got to talk to, because it's not a monster. It's not evil. It's not a devil. It's not a demon. It's a little child of about 8 who's stuck. And she and he needs help and guidance. She needs emotional education. She needs someone to put their arm around them and say, okay, darling, let's walk you through this one little baby step at a time.
Yeah, because the inner child, that childlike part of you, and I'll put a link to our first inner child video, which explains the concept in much more detail. But that part of your mind hasn't yet grasped the life lesson that, people will mistreat you. Situations can be challenging. People you love do die. People you love do leave you, sometimes without explanation. That childlike part of your mind is struggling. They are on the carousel. They are screaming about how bad it is. And so it's up to you as the adult to first understand those life lessons for yourself as the adult and accept that is the case. And then you can teach that to the inner child.
Whoa, and that's really difficult. That's really
I know.
difficult.
I will also put a link to our inner child reparenting videos, which will start to give you some idea of how you begin that communication process with your inner child. But as the adult, one of the things I want to pick up on is one of the most important things to get you off the carousel, or at least pause the carousel for a moment while you can almost like catch your breath in between experiencing the red light emotions is to, as you said, be very mindful of the words you use, to not say, I'm an emotional wreck, or this is a nightmare, or this is a complete disaster, or this is all going to go wrong, or I'm absolutely rubbish, or I'm so weak. To use all this negative self-talk, because that perpetuates the problem, that drives the emotion, that inflames the emotion. It's like throwing petrol on the fire rather than saying, well, hold on, the fire alarm's going off. I've got an internal fire here. If you use the wrong words, if you use the wrong self-talk to yourself, if you talk about your emotions to other people in that sort of negative way, it inflames the problem. It doesn't release or heal the problem.
It's right. It's a good analogy you've used there, because it's like the fire alarm is going, the fire alarm is ringing, the fire is going, and you say, I'll go and get some petrol and throw on the fire.
I want to talk about how bad this fire is.
People will realise how bad this fire is. Look at it. It's out of control. And this is, the Taoists call it, I repeat this on many videos, the words you use are the bricks that build the house that you live in. So really be careful on your words. And I know a lot of my clients, when I'm working with them, they think I'm a bit pedantic about words. But words are very important. Make sure the words are true, you believe them, they reflect how you think. We're not trying to describe your feelings. Once you tell me I have a red light feeling, I take that as very serious. That's telling me the fire alarm is going, David. Okay, let's find the fire and let's put it out. Let's not throw petrol on the fire. Let's put it out. You don't have to keep on explaining to me how bad the fire is. You don't understand, David. It's really big. It's really loud. And that's when I'm saying, when we're doing the golden thread, ban the F word. When you're doing that golden thread process, ban the F word. Stop saying, I feel. Now that sounds easy, doesn't it? You try it. Stop saying, I feel.
I feel anxious. I'm really feel stressed about this.
I feel
I'm really
worn
angry.
Out. I feel at the end of my tether. I've never found out what a tether is. I'm at the end. I feel like I'm at the end of my tether, David.
I feel overwhelmed.
I feel overwhelmed. I feel as though I'm not good enough. I feel like I can't cope. And if you stop saying I feel, replace it with one of these three. I think, I choose, I believe. Because when you replace it with one of those, then you can do the golden thread. Because now you're saying, instead of, I use the one you said, I feel overwhelmed. I believe I'm overwhelmed. Then you can use the golden thread. Why do you believe you're overwhelmed? Now we're going down a different track. Now we're going down the track of authenticity.
Yeah.
Now we're following, you said once, following the breadcrumbs.
It's like the breadcrumbs. So we're starting so we're not saying ignore the feelings. No. We're not saying they don't exist. We're not saying that they're not uncomfortable. We're not saying that they're not painful. We know that.
Absolutely.
We're acknowledging them, but then we're saying it's a red light feeling.
It's a fire alarm.
We don't need to talk about how bad it is or how many different ways it manifests in your body or where it is in your body or anything like that.
No.
It's just a red light feeling. I think, I believe, or I choose then takes you down to the next level of the golden thread process, which is looking at the thoughts and the self-talk. What is it that you think or you believe, or why are you choosing to be anxious? Why do you believe you're anxious?
Yeah.
Why do you think you're anxious? And that questioning process that you use in the golden thread process that you use with all your clients takes you down to the core beliefs.
Yes.
To the three lies in the belief system. So if you've got a red light feeling, typically 99.9% it's based on a lie in your core beliefs. Yes. So which is I'm not good enough, I can't cope, or I can't manage, or I'm unlovable.
Yes. Or I'm not worthy. It's in that three area. I'm not good enough, I can't cope, can't manage, I'm unlovable or unworthy. Do it for yourself, just in your own mind. I will almost guarantee you will come down to one of those three lies. Yeah. How can they be true if you really believe you're an awesome spiritual person? If you're sensitive, how can that be true? And then you have to say, well, it's because It's because I'm not spiritual then, isn't it? Poor me, look at me, I can't cope, I'm not good enough, everybody else is good enough. Then you start doing all the other stuff we talk about in all the videos, CCJing, comparing, criticising, being judgmental, looking at other people. Well, look at them, they've got a better husband, they've got a better wife, they've got a bigger car, they've got a better job, their children are better than mine. There's the carousel. Now you're on the carousel. And quicker and quicker and quicker. And then, this is what a client said to me yesterday. This carousel, we called it a hamster's wheel. And she runs so quickly on this hamster's wheel. And she said, David, you don't realise I'm working really hard. I said, no, I do realise. It's like a hamster getting off the hamster's wheel and going, phew, I've been on that hamster's wheel for an hour.
Yeah.
You haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah, I'm knackered.
But David, I really run as fast as I can on the hamster's wheel. But you're not getting anywhere because you're misunderstanding the situation. You have to take responsibility. And if you believe any of those three lies, please, I always say, write in, put it into group. Prove to me that you're not good enough. Prove to me that you can't cope. Prove to me that you're unlovable. You will never prove to me. You will give me the reasons of why you think that and what happens, because that's the law of attraction. But you'll never give me the reason. And when you do, I can tell you again, the majority of the time, you know what you'll say? It's because someone told me. Because my dad, or they didn't say, my dad, my mom, my teacher, my friends, I was bullied. And then you say, well, therefore, I'm not good enough. Well, that's nonsensical. That doesn't even make any sense. Just because somebody says it doesn't make it true. I could say the moon's made of green cheese. It doesn't make it true. It's just what I'm saying. You have to take responsibility and you have to analyze it for yourself. And this is the spiritual teaching. This is what's going to change your life. This is what's going to change your emotions. That taking responsibility and what you believe. How many times have I said this in these videos? What do you believe? Why do you believe it? Yeah. How can it be even simpler than that?
And do that self-inquiry work, because I guess our message is, until you find those core beliefs, the misguided core beliefs, the lies as we call them, which often come from childhood, until you find them, interrogate them, own them, and teach the inner child, or that part of your mind we call the inner child, the life lesson, explain that it's a misunderstanding, then the misunderstanding is corrected. Then the red light feelings go away, just like that. Just like that. For good.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean to say that you won't get red light feelings ever again in the future, because as we say, there may be other life lessons to learn.
Yep. There will be other life lessons
that get triggered or pointed out by situations you encounter in your life. There will be other challenging people and situations that you encounter in your life. But as we said, the idea is just to get more used to being more in that middle zone, so you're not swinging to one extreme or the other all the time. That's the kind of emotional wreck state. Now,
can I just emphasize one thing you said quickly, and I want to make sure the spiritual teaching. There will be other life lessons. You are not immune. You will not live a perfect life where nothing ever happens that you don't like. Can I make that clear?
And also, anyone who tells you that you'll never experience emotional pain again, or any therapist who says, they're talking rubbish.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What we're talking is how you deal with it, so how you address it, how you take responsibility for it, how you don't then go and jump onto the hamster's wheel, how you deal with difficult situations. And guess what? When you start to do this, pretty soon, you'll become an expert at it. And it won't be a problem to you. And instead of avoiding difficult situations, you'll be happy to go and address them.
And almost kind of thriving on the idea of addressing them quickly and immediately, because you know it's like, bingo, I've just learnt ticked off another life lesson there. I can move on, I can flourish, I can grow and transform. The energy is moved. you'll encounter more life lessons. I mean, that's along the way, and that's the journey, isn't it?
And then to your surprise, people will be saying things like, oh my goodness, you deal with difficult things so sensitively.
Yeah.
That's a great quality of yours, and you'll be going, yeah.
So the objective here then is not to get rid of all emotional pain.
No.
It's understanding what it is, how to manage it, and how to stay more in that Wu Wei zone of green light feelings more of the time. The big difference between, I guess, our model and a lot of other therapy models is they focus more at the top level. They want to, a lot of therapy models and counseling models want you to sit in the feelings, talk about the feelings, talk about where they are in the body. There's even kind of schools of thought which talk about kind of emotional trauma being held in the biology of the body. Therefore, we have to look at the biology and the stuff at the cellular level to heal. But our message is kind of goes against that. It's about for the sort of emotional issues we've been talking about where it's an internal imbalance based on those lies, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I can't manage. You have to look at the beliefs. There's no point in spending hours and hours and hours talking about your feelings, because I guess the misunderstanding is some people, when you've kind of had a good dump of your feelings about how bad you're feeling, if you talk to someone who's willing to listen about it for an hour or so, it is an emotional release. So you do kind of think, oh, I feel a bit better now. That's great. But the problem is they come back. Why they come back is because you've not dealt with the actual problem. You've not dealt with the deeper level stuff that is causing the emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you go and see your friend, and over coffee you have a good cry and a good moan, and you walk out, think, oh, that feels a bit better now, doesn't it? And then 3 hours later, you're just back on the carousel again, because you haven't changed the core belief. And remember, this is a spiritual teaching. And I think Alex was trying to identify why our model is slightly different. And the way that I would put it is, this is a spiritual teaching. This is what we're talking about. Shall I get the comments and the letters raining in now? I think red lights are an asset. I think red lights used correctly are a spiritual guide. Now, when you experience red light, they are not your enemy, something to be avoided. They are a spiritual guide. And the more spiritual you are, the more sensitive you are, the more you will experience the red lights until you learn how to deal with them. And that's why I call this emotional education. You have already got the tools. It's like you've got the toolbox. I don't have to give you the tools. You've got the toolbox. What we're doing is say, well, open the box and let's learn how to use them. And that's the key. I can't give you anything. If you're looking for, we talked a couple of weeks ago about one of our people who wrote in said she's read hundreds of self-help books and things like that.
Gone on retreats.
It's down to you. You have this knowledge. Learn how to use the tools that you already have. Then your life changes. And the beauty about this, your life changes very quickly as well. You don't have to do it, and it doesn't suddenly get perfect, but you'll see the improvement. And then you'll start to get to enjoy learning. It's kind of a nice thing.
And enjoy acknowledging, owning, facing up to the fact that you have got the red light feelings and seeing them as a positive asset. And that's a real kind of paradigm shift, because obviously most people who label themselves, I'm an anxious person, I'm depressed, all these kind of syndromes that we have in Western medicine, they don't see that as a positive thing, quite understandably. But we're saying, use it positively. They're telling you there's some deeper work that needs to be done there so you can live your authentic, best life.
But that's why I love my job so much. I'm working every day with these amazing people. And it's like trying to take the top off all this undiscovered ability and talent that they've got. And suddenly you see them flourishing and being who, I haven't done it, They've done it, and it's wonderful to watch.
It's not something you've given them.
I can't give it to them. No.
Yeah, they're already that awesome person.
Absolutely.
It's just letting the emotions run their life, be who they are. You know, I'm an anxious person, I'm a depressed person, I'm an angry person. That is selling them. They're selling themselves short.
Instead of saying, "I am an awesome person. I am divine. I anything that I really would want to do, I can focus and do that. There's nothing stopping me, only me." And that to me is one of the greatest spiritual teachings. You are so blessed to be living this life, you know, and I can understand, and I absolutely am compassionate. If you've gone through really difficult childhood, really difficult teachings, really difficult experiences, but I know you can turn this around, and it's in your grasp. You can do this. I don't doubt that at all. If you want to do it, you will do it. And it won't be a straight line. It won't be like a graph that goes like that. It'll be a graph that goes like Wu Wei. Sometimes you're doing it better. Sometimes you have to learn something. And that's great. And that's the journey of life that we're on. And you're blessed to be on that journey. Just be the best that you can be. Don't be perfect. Believe in yourself. Love yourself. Drop your shoulders. Take a breath. Focus on you. What is it you really want to do? What is it that expresses your spirituality the best? What is it that makes you really creative? What is it that you love doing, you look forward to doing? Start doing more of that. Start honoring yourself. Start respecting yourself, loving and caring for you. Be compassionate about you. Treat you with that highest regard. Never talk down to yourself. Never use these negative words to keep you trapped. Do not be so harsh on yourself. I can tell you, my clients are the harshest people. They treat themselves with the harshest lashing of the tongue to themselves. Stop it. You have to stop this now. You know this has never worked. You know this. It's not going to suddenly change and start working as in the future, is it? You know, it's Einstein that says the definition of insanity by Einstein, the greatest thinker ever living, is keep doing the same thing and expect different results. I call it the law of attraction. If you keep doing the same thing, you get the same results. You've got to change. Change is good. Change is spiritual. Change is a sensitive thing to do. Change, embrace new ideas, new ways of doing things, walk differently, dress differently, do things differently. Take a big, deep breath, and you can do it. And I don't doubt you one little bit.
Thank you, David. And I just want to pick up on one really important point, because I know we get asked this question a lot. In terms of medication, obviously, there's a lot of people who are managing their emotional feelings, their red light feelings through medication, so antidepressants, etc., that sort of thing. Where does medication fit into this system of managing and resolving and learning life lessons in terms of all the emotional feelings?
So if you're on medication, you should never change your medication unless you go and speak to your GP and do it with their understanding and their help. I would give you in general terms my idea of medication. I may surprise you to say I don't think it's an evil thing or a bad thing. What I will say, if you're using it, as Alex said, I don't know whether you heard what she said, to manage your emotions, then it won't work. But of course, if you go through a really traumatic situation, medication in the short term may help you through that immediate situation.
It kind of brings the intensity of them down.
But if you're looking for it for a long-term fix, and then I don't think it's going to work. I think you have to do the golden thread work, but you never alter or change. If you're on medication now, you never alter or change your medication without knowing and consulting with your GP, the person who prescribed it, and talking about them, about is there any other way that we could think about reducing this medication. I would say some form of talking therapy, either if our system appeals to you, then us, but there's plenty of other systems, and then speak to your GP and do it with their blessing and with their help, and then reduce it. They will almost guarantee that if you do want to reduce it very slowly and carefully.
Yeah, great. So it's a case of medication can be a useful tool in some instances, almost like a stopgap, but then that allows you the emotional breathing space to begin to do the work. The key is you've got to do the deeper work. That, I guess that's our message, isn't it? And otherwise, the emotions don't go away. And
if you are thinking about medication, I would always say speak to a qualified GP, doctor, and talk about all the other possibilities as well, because there's other things, it's all according to what country that you live in, to what other things are available to you. But most doctors and GPs will want to speak to you about some kind of talking therapy. We're in UK, and normally they recommend cognitive talking, and you've got to find the way that works for you. But what I would say, I do not believe that it's a cure-all. That's probably the way that I would say it. That's probably the best way. It's not suddenly I can pop a pill and then it all goes away. I think that it can be used as a part of the treatment plan.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. So we've covered a lot of ground there. I hope that's really given you a good insight into what we believe the purpose of emotional feelings are, even the uncomfortable and painful ones, or particularly the uncomfortable and painful ones, and most importantly, how you can effectively manage them so you can live your life in Wu Wei, in balance, authentically, in your flow. If you can relate to anything we've discussed in this video, if you want to share your experiences, please post your comments below. We're always delighted to hear from you. If you're new to our videos and new to our channels, welcome. It's great to have you here. And if you're a returning supporter, it's wonderful for you to be here also. So please say hello below. And if you're interested in David's one-to-one sessions, using the golden thread process, doing the inner child work, teaching you how to manage and stay in Wu Wei and stay in that Wu Wei zone, I will put a link to David's sessions in the video description below. And finally, don't forget, every week we're producing new videos. So do subscribe to our channel and press the bell notifications button if you want to get a little notification every time we produce a new video. And we look forward to seeing you all very soon. Bye-bye.